Super Rugby Power Rankings, the Trans-Tasman competition after 3 rounds. It's getting a bit of a tough one to do the Power Rankings in terms of making it not intentionally different, but different from the actual log. Because there's a little bit of variation, but after 3 games, it's very similar to how the teams look around the log. I think that kind of makes sense. Usually it's over the course of the competition when you see a lot more home and away travel. Big teams getting upset, little teams picking up away wins. It's kind of easier to justify the rankings, but we'll go with it. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things might be looking. 10th spot, I am still going with the Rebels. There's no change there. Now, let's not fool ourselves and be too hard on them, but the performance was improved, but it's still another loss. And they kind of had a slight advantage in that they made the home team travel more towards them than what they had to travel. So if there was a time to get a better performance in, it was this one. And they maybe put in a better effort than what we were expecting. Maybe not. They scored 4 tries. But yeah, they still got pretty handsomely beaten. So Rebels are still there in 10th. Work in progress, as are the Waratahs. It's another loss for them. I was kind of flirting with the idea of putting the Waratahs up a little higher, but man, they just concede way too many points. They concede so many points. I think they've conceded 100 points in the last 2 games. Yeah, I can't. They can score points. Like, they score 20 plus points each week they play. Against the Blues, against the Crusaders, they've played some good teams, but they just ship way too many. And likewise with the Rebels, it seems like it's a work in progress. I'm hoping the Tars can kind of get their act together over time. The more these guys play together, if they can keep some stability amongst the squad, it should improve. There's a fair few young guys in that squad. So, they've got the attacking side semi-down pat. It's just the defending that needs work. He says, like it's an easy thing to fix. Next, and I've got these guys down. That's the Brumbies. I had the Reds here last week. Brumbies had another loss, and they seem to be getting worse before they're getting better, which is an unfortunate part. They conceded close to 40 points, and they only managed 10 against the Blues. Like, even the Waratahs, as I mentioned, got 20 plus against the Blues. So they were very competitive for a half, and then kind of blown away. So yeah, they started off pretty well. They don't seem to be tracking in the right direction, do the Brumbies. It was good for them to have Nick White back. But, the scrum's looking under a lot of pressure. So hopefully that's something that as guys come back will also improve. But at the moment, it's not looking that great. Next, and these guys are also down a spot, the Western Force. I had them a spot higher last week after being the only team from the Aussies to not have a proper hiding against them. Well, now they've had a hiding. They scored 6 points and then conceded, 43 on the bounce. So that was a pretty tough one. I don't know what to say. That wasn't good. I'm hoping it's not going to be 3 from 3 hidings on their trip to New Zealand, because they did look solid without being spectacular in Perth, but that one looks a wee bit ominous. And rounding out the Aussie teams, I've chucked the Reds, as the log kind of reflects, I believe, into 6th, because they got a win. Now, it would have been much nicer to be talking if they'd kind of hung on and really, put down a statement victory, but boy, did they almost let that slip at the end. So it got a bit hairy, but a win is a much welcome win after copping a real shellacking the week before. It's good for them to bounce back. They get another crack against the Kiwi team, as do all the Aussie teams. But they got the Blues coming to town this week, so that will be a good test for them, because the Blues, at the moment anyway, are flying high on the log. Into the Kiwi teams, I really wasn't sure how to rank it, but if you lose, you got to drop. And the Chiefs have dropped from 2nd to 5th, similar to how it's working on the log. The other teams all got wins. I tried to justify not making the shift as dramatic, But ultimately, the Chiefs lost. In my head, I'm telling myself, look, they were 15 on 13 for a while. It was 15 on 14. The Reds really kind of capitalized. They played so well with the extra man. Maybe you can justify that as keeping the Chiefs like maybe dropping to 4th. But then the Highlanders, the Blues, the Crusaders, and the Hurricanes all won. So I couldn't bring myself to make excuses for the loss. The loss is the loss. And that drops the Chiefs down. In terms of the competition, I mean, it doesn't rule them out, but they're relying on 3 teams above them to all drop games for them to be able to catch them, essentially, in all likelihood. So, I mean, it's possible that the Blues will drop the result in Queensland. It's possible that another Kiwi team will drop, but based on what we've seen thus far, it doesn't seem all that likely. It would certainly open things up and make things interesting. That's what the Chiefs will need to hope for at this point. Yeah, they were just all at sea for a while. They credit to them for coming back, but it wasn't quite there. Next is the Highlanders, and it's another week where they get a win, but still come away a little bit regretful of not being able to push a bit further. They miss out on that bonus point. And again, it's one where you kind of justify it by saying they had that ridiculous travel schedule. They had to play away from home as their home game, so it's kind of all against them. But they didn't get that bonus point. So, yeah, it's just not been as convincing. But they were so bloody close, just like the Chiefs. They could have got that bonus point try at the end. It didn't quite happen for them. But it's still a win, so they are tracking well, although I have dropped them from 3rd because these guys managed to get a big win. Hurricanes, they beat the Force, and the Force were looking the sharper of the Aussie teams going into this round, so I will give them credit for that. I'm still not 100% convinced, I don't know what it's going to take, but I've bumped them up. So despite my kind of reservations about it, they've now beaten the Rebels, they've beaten the Waratahs, and they've beaten the Force. They haven't played the top 2 teams from the AU standings, but based on what the Brumbies have been showing us, I don't know, maybe the Hurricanes will go on to another win. We'll see. But yeah, up to 3rd for them. The Blues, I have chucked up 1 spot as well. They are flying high once again. In that first half, it was a little bit worrying that the Blues might be the first New Zealand team to drop the game, but they really powered home in the second half. So credit to them for that. They've got a very tough ask in Queensland next week, or this week. But if they're going to do anything in this competition, they need to not let their foot off the pedal and need to keep it going. But I'm still ranking these guys, who are not first on the log, as the team to beat. They are just looking the team to beat. When are the Crusaders not the team to beat, man? It's another win from them, and they just still look so sharp. They'll be a bit disappointed in themselves at the amount of points they conceded, but I still reckon they are the team to beat. The Blues and the Hurricanes both still need to play the Reds. Remember what the Crusaders did to the Reds, and then what the Reds did to the Chiefs. So that puts a bit into context, I think, that the Crusaders are still the top side. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. If you were doing your rankings, who would you have it? Who's too high? Who is too low? And yeah, like the video if you got this far. Subscribe. Comment. Talk to you again soon. See you later.